wisdom. With the divisions of the Abhisamilakra. Translated by Edward Conze. University of California Press, Berkeley, Los Angeles, London. Translation of the Sutra. Chapter 20, Non-duality. Purna. This elder subhuti, O Lord, when requested by the Tathagata to speak about perfect wisdom, fancied that the great vehicle was something that could be explained. Subhuti. I hope, O Lord, I have not transgressed against perfect wisdom when explaining the great vehicle. The Lord. In agreement with perfect wisdom, you have. Subhuti, explained the great vehicle. And why? Because whatever wholesome dharmas there are that act as wings to enlightenment, be they disciple-dharmas, pratyekabuddha-dharmas, bodhisattva-dharmas, they are comprehended in perfect wisdom and come together therein. Subhuti. Which are those wholesome dharmas? The Lord. They are the applications of mindfulness, etc. 2. The 18 special Buddha-dharmas, the state of being always mindful and even-minded. They are all comprehended in the perfection of wisdom and come together therein. But what the great vehicle is, what the perfections are, what the applications of mindfulness, etc. 2. The Buddha-dharmas, what the dharma-vinaya made known by the tathagata, what form, etc. is, what the dharma-element, suchness, the reality limit, the unthinkable element, and nirvana, all these dharmas are non-resisting, with one mark only, i.e. no mark. In this way you describe, subhuti, the great vehicle in agreement with the perfection of wisdom. And why? Because the great vehicle is not one thing, and the perfection of wisdom another, the perfection of concentration, etc. Again, and the other perfections, are not two nor divided. Nor is the great vehicle one thing and the applications of mindfulness, etc. 2. The Buddha-dharmas another. In this way you describe, subhuti, the great vehicle in agreement with the perfection of wisdom. Negation of something to be attained. Impossibility of attainment. A nothing is ever really brought forth. Subhuti. Furthermore, O Lord, a bodhisattva who sets out on this journey does not approach the goal of full bodhisattvahood from where it begins, nor from where it ends, nor in the middle either. From the boundlessness of form, etc. Should the boundlessness of a bodhisattva be known, a bodhisattva's form, etc. does not exist, cannot be apprehended. Since in each and every way I do not get at a bodhisattva, or see him, what bodhisattva should I instruct and admonish in what perfection of wisdom? Moreover, this bodhisattva is a mere designation. It is as with the self. Although we speak of a self, yet absolutely the self is something uncreated. Since therefore all dharmas have no own being, what is that form which is something uncreated? What is uncreated, that is not form, etc. How shall I instruct and admonish a non-creation in a perfect wisdom which is also a non-creation? And yet, one cannot apprehend as other than uncreated the dharmas of a bodhisattva who courses towards enlightenment. If, when this is being expounded, the thou of a bodhisattva does not become cowed, stolid, or regretful, and if his mind does not tremble, is not frightened, nor terrified, then that bodhisattva, that great being courses in perfect wisdom. Sariputra. For what reason, then? Subhuti, do you say that a bodhisattva does not approach from the beginning, end, or middle? Subhuti. It is because of the non-beingness, the emptiness, the isolatedness of a being, because of the absence of an own being in it, that a bodhisattva does not approach a bodhi being at the beginning, at the end, or in the middle. And why? Because as a result of the non-beingness of a being, its emptiness, its isolatedness, and the absence of own being in it, one cannot apprehend its beginning, etc. Nor is the non-beingness of a being, its isolatedness, its emptiness, the absence of own being in it, one thing, and a bodhisattva another, and beginning, middle, and end again another. For all these are not two nor divided. It is because of the non-beingness of form, etc. Its emptiness, its isolatedness, its lack of own being, that a bodhisattva does not approach a bodhi being from either beginning, end, or middle. Because form, etc. cannot be apprehended in non-beingness, emptiness, isolatedness, or in lack of own being. Nor is non-beingness one thing, emptiness another, isolatedness another, lack of own being another, a bodhisattva another form, etc. another, beginning, end, and middle another. But all these are not two nor divided. And that should be done for all dharmas. Negation of someone who attains. Sariputra. As again, subhuti, you say. For what reason should the boundlessness of a bodhisattva be known from the boundlessness of form, etc.? Subhuti. Form, etc. is the same as space. And why? Of space one cannot apprehend a beginning, end, or middle, but it is because of its endlessness and boundlessness that one speaks conventionally of space. Just so one cannot apprehend a beginning, end, or middle form, etc. And why? On account of the emptiness of form, etc. Of emptiness one cannot apprehend a beginning, end, or middle, and yet one nevertheless speaks conventionally of emptiness. And so for all dharmas. It is by this method that the boundlessness of a bodhisattva should be known from the boundlessness of form, etc. Sariputra. For what reason do you say that a bodhisattva's form does not exist, cannot apprehend it? Subhuti. Form, etc. is empty of form, etc. And why? Because in emptiness form, etc. as well as the bodhisattva, does not exist and cannot be found. And so for all dharmas. The disciple is empty of discipleship, the pratyekabuddha of pratyekabuddhahood, the tathagata of tathagatahood. And why? For in emptiness the tathagata does not exist, nor does a bodhisattva. It is in this way that a bodhisattva's form, etc. does not exist, cannot be apprehended. Sariputra. For what reason do you say that since in each and every way I do not get at a bodhisattva, or see him, what bodhisattva should I instruct and admonish in what perfect wisdom? Subhuti. In form, form cannot exist or be apprehended. In feeling form cannot exist or be apprehended. Nor can feeling in feeling. Feeling in form, form, and feeling in perception, perception in perception, perception in form, perception in feeling, form in feeling and perception and impulses, impulses in impulses. Impulses in form and feeling and perception, consciousness in form and feeling and perception and impulses. And so for the other dharmas. In bodhisattvahood the bodhisattva cannot exist or be apprehended, nor can the tathagata in tathagatahood, the perfection of wisdom in the perfection of wisdom, the perfection of wisdom in the instruction and admonition, or the instruction and admonition in the perfection of wisdom. It is thus because all dharmas do not exist and are baseless, that the bodhisattva does not exist and cannot apprehend it. Negation of both object and subject of attainment. Sariputra. For what reason, subhuti, do you say that a bodhisattva is a mere designation? And why do you say that the word bodhisattva has been added on as an adventitious designation? Subhuti. Because words do not come from anywhere in the 10 directions, nor do they go to anywhere, nor do they stand anywhere. And that holds good of the words applied to all dharmas and also those applied to the bodhisattvas. For form, etc. are adventitious designations, and what is a designation that is not actually form, etc.? And why? For words are empty of the own being of words, and what is empty, that is not a word. It is for this reason that the word bodhisattva is said to be a mere designation. Sariputra. For what reason, subhuti, do you say that although we speak of a self, yet absolutely the self is something uncreated? Subhuti. Absolutely a self does not exist. How then could its real creation take place? And that is true also of the synonyms of self, like being, soul, etc. And also of form, etc. And all dharmas. Sariputra. For what reason has the Ven. Subhuti said that all dharmas have no own being? Subhuti. Because an own being acting in causal connection does not exist. Sariputra. Of what is there no own being acting in causal connection? Subhuti. Of form, etc. By this method all dharmas are without own being. Moreover, Sariputra, all dharmas are impermanent, but not because something has disappeared. Sariputra. Which are those all dharmas which are impermanent, but not because something has disappeared? Subhuti. Form, etc. is impermanent, but not because something has disappeared. And why? For what is impermanent, that is non-existence and extinction. Likewise all dharmas are ill, not self, calm, empty, signless, wishless, but not because something has disappeared. They are wholesome, faultless, without outflows, undefiled, supramundane, non-purified, unconditioned. And why? Because the unconditioned is non-existence and extinction. By this method all dharmas are without own being, but not by the disappearance of anything. Moreover, Sariputra, all dharmas are neither unmoved nor destroyed. Sariputra. For what reason? Subhuti. Form, etc. is neither unmoved nor destroyed. And why? Such is its essential original nature. The same is true of all that is wholesome or unwholesome, faulty or faultless, with or without outflows, defiled or undefiled, worldly or supramundane, conditioned or unconditioned, defilement or purification, samsara or nirvana. By this method all dharmas have no own being. Sariputra. For what reason, Subhuti, have you said that form, etc. is not brought about? Subhuti. Form, etc. is not a really created thing. And why? Because there is no agent who could bring them about, nor can such an agent be apprehended. Sariputra. For what reason, Subhuti, is that which is uncreated not form, etc. Subhuti. Because form, etc. is empty in its essential nature. And what is empty in its essential nature? Of that there is no production or passing away, and in consequence also no alteration can be conceived of it. Sariputra. For what reason, Subhuti, do you say, how shall I instruct and admonish a non-creation in a perfect wisdom which is also a non-creation? Subhuti. Because, as a non-creation, so is perfect wisdom, and what is perfect wisdom that is a non-creation? Perfect wisdom and a non-creation are therefore not divided. Sariputra. For what reason can one not apprehend as other than uncreated the dharmas of a bodhisattva who courses towards enlightenment? Subhuti. Because a bodhisattva, who courses imperfect wisdom, does not review a non-creation as one thing, and a bodhisattva as another. A bodhisattva and a non-creation are not two nor divided. Nor does he review form, etc. as other than a non-creation. For a non-creation, and form, etc. are not two nor divided. Sariputra. For what reason, Ven. Subhuti, do you say that if when this is being expounded, the though of a bodhisattva does not become cowed, stolid, or regretful, and if his mind does not tremble, is not frightened or terrified, then that bodhisattva courses in perfect wisdom? Subhuti. Because there a bodhisattva reviews all dharmas as without inward striving. As similar to a moksha, a dream, a mirage, an echo, an image, a reflection of the moon in the water, a magical creation, a village of the Gandharvas. Non-duality. At the time when a bodhisattva, who courses in perfect wisdom, investigates those dharmas, at that time he does not approach form, etc. Does not grasp at it, does not take his stand on it, does not settle down in it, does not make it known as form, etc. Is that? For a bodhisattva, who courses in perfect wisdom, does not review form, etc. And why? Because the non-production of form, etc. is not form, etc. Form, etc. and non-production are not two nor divided. What is the non-production of the dharma-element, that is not the dharma-element? What is the non-production of suchness, the space-element, the reality limit, the unthinkable element, enlightenment, and the knowledge of all modes, that is not suchness, etc. 2. Not the knowledge of all modes. It is thus that the dharma-element and non-production are not two or divided. It is thus that suchness, etc. 2. Not the knowledge of all modes. It is thus that the dharma-element and non-production are not two or divided. It is thus that suchness, etc. 2. Not the knowledge of all modes and non-production are not two or divided. And why? Because non-production is not one or two, not many or single. Therefore the non-production of the knowledge of all modes is not the knowledge of all modes. The passing away of form, etc. is not form, etc. It is thus that the skandhas and passing away are not two or divided. And why? Because passing away is not one or two, not many or single. Therefore, what is the passing away of the 5 skandhas, that is not the 5 skandhas? And so far all dharmas. Inasmuch as one calls anything form, etc., one makes account of what is non-dual.